Guys, what's up? It's Melody, and today I want to talk about decorating, and I've wanted to do a video about decorating because if you make mistakes in decorating, it will cost you an arm and a leg, or maybe just an arm, but it will cost a couple hundred or a couple $1,000s because furniture is not cheap. So going through this video hopefully will really help you out, or if you know of somebody that's about to move on their own, get to them with this video. The very first thing that I do when I look for a place to live is I look for good bones, because you can get all of the decor right, and if the house doesn't have good lighting or sounds traveling, it's not going to really feel like a home. So when I look for a place, I look for a place with a lot of windows. Pat, stop licking my cup. Pat is so fat. She's literally licking my cup. I try to get an apartment that's closer to the sun. In other words, the higher up, the better, because your mood will be improved in the sun and everything will glow better in the sun. So I do try to get a place that's very well lit, and I try to get a place that has carpet already in there. Rugs are a little bit more difficult. Now, if you live in Europe, you're going to have to get rugs or deal with the echo, or try to swallow up the echo with curtains and fabric headboards and things that will not allow the sound to travel. If you go too minimalist and you go for Scandinavian furniture, little skinny Mac laptops, and no curtains, then there's going to be a lot of echo and it might not quite feel like a home. If you're always out of the house traveling, or you're very social and you always entertain outside of your house, then maybe that doesn't matter as much to you. So just stick with your own priorities. But those are the things I look for as the main bones of a house. And these are the mistakes that I've made over the years. The first thing is I bought cheap curtains at one point, affordable curtains. And the one thing that they don't tell you about adulthood is that good curtains, or any curtains really, even cheap curtains, are not that cheap. But curtains are expensive. Never in my little tiny imaginative kid mind did I think of the price of curtains in my analysis. Yes, as a thinker, I thought of closing costs on a house. I thought of retirement. I thought about every possible thing you can think of, but I did not think of curtains because it never crossed my mind. In fact, I've never heard an adult complain about the cost of curtains. But window treatments are expensive. But you don't want to skimp on window treatments because it can make your house glow. I mean, curtains do so much. They not only provide privacy, but they also help regulate the temperature, and they also keep the sound from traveling. There's so many things that they do, but they light up the room so nicely when they're closed. Country cotton curtains can look really nice. It can add a very comfortable feel to a room. Whatever works, but for me, I've learned not to skimp on the price of curtains, and also if I own my own place, I will probably get electronic blinds, the ones that fold up with a remote control, and therefore they're not collecting dust when they're not in use, and they're not dragging on the floor, so they're very easy to clean around and look truly minimalist. But again, that's something you have to do if you own a house. You can't really do that if you're not staying in one place for very long, because you're not going to get all those things custom made and pay an exorbitant price for that and then have to move everything. So if you own your house, you can take more liberties where lighting is concerned and where window treatments are concerned. The very next thing that I learned to avoid is to avoid things that are hard to clean. Because if it requires specialty cleaners, or if it is always collecting dust or dirt or fingerprints, it's not a good idea. So glass tables are off limits for me because I owned a glass table. It was always getting fingerprints. Wood is a little bit easier to take care of, but if it has a lacquer on top of the wood, that's even more ideal. It all depends on your sense of style and how much you really want to be cleaning. But I always say a little prayer out to people that have mirrored furniture, because mirrored furniture is probably the most difficult to clean, which is why I've cut my mirrors by half, because even though they're not furniture, I don't touch them all the time. Cleaning mirrors alone, not even being touched, takes a lot of work. So imagine if you have a nightstand that you're touching all the time. My gosh, they will tell you themselves they have to keep a bottle of Windex next to their nightstand because it's just too much work. So every time you're making a purchase, really consider, and this isn't just talking about furniture, but really any purchase, is my future self going to regret this choice? Because you want to make purchases with your future self in mind. And the very next thing I regret is I regret not getting a floating nightstand and more floating furniture. Now, you want to downsize as much as possible, because there's lots of furniture you won't even need after you've downsized. But after you've downsized, floating furniture is ideal because it's so efficient. You can easily get addicted to efficiency when you see how much benefit it has to your life when you apply just little principles here or there. But especially when it comes to floating things, it's so much easier to clean around. So I do wish that I got a floating nightstand, and I probably will replace it when I move. I will get a floating nightstand, but you know, don't get a floating nightstand if you keep your Kindle and your iPod and your phone and your Amazon, whatever those columns are that you talk into, Amazon Echo. If you keep your whole life on your nightstand, don't get a floating nightstand because it might fall off the wall. I'm just kidding. You're gonna see all of the cords, and that's not going to be a good look. But if you only keep 1 or 2 things on the nightstand that need to be plugged in, then it's not a big deal. So for me, I have my lamp, which is a clear cord, and my phone, which is a white cord, so it's not going to be looking ugly. But for TV stands, it might be a better idea not to have floating anything, because if you have a lot of things at your TV center, you will see the cords underneath it. And if you don't own your house, you can't be drilling into the wall and stuffing all your cords back there. It's going to be a pain to patch it up. So that's just an FYI. Another thing about maintenance is that fabric headboards are a lot more difficult to maintain than wood headboards, but it depends on how much time you spend in bed and the look you're going for. I spend a lot of time in my bedroom editing, or really just napping or doing anything in bed, folding laundry, so I like having a soft headboard personally, but it's up to you and your priorities and your lifestyle. The very next thing to avoid is doing all DIY furniture or lamp tips. There are so many videos on YouTube that make certain makeup looks or certain DIY projects alluring, and then when you get halfway through it, you realize it's actually a lot more product intensive or work intensive than you thought. So really think about it. If you have lots of kids, or if you're career oriented, or you're going to college and we really don't have the time to be building stuff ourselves. The benefit of building something yourself is you have a feeling of accomplishment and it looks unique, but you really have to decide if the pros outweigh the cons. So for my media center, I did paint over it and changed out the knobs, and I really like the way that turned out. But for instance, I'm going to downsize my media center because I can never use all of the drawers in there. But I do like painting dressers for sure, because you can get a very cool look, and dressers are usually the center point of the living room. So an orange or a bright green dresser can look amazing with the TV on top. It can look very nice. But other than that, I don't think I will be doing a bunch of DIY projects because it requires so many products that I wouldn't have in my minimalist toolbox. And my minimalist toolbox is not that minimalist because I can do almost every home chore here with my own tools. So it fits in one drawer easily, but if I started doing DIY projects, it would easily bleed out. So you have to consider what your priorities are. My very last tip is to make sure that you know the color scheme that you want before you ever start decorating, so that it makes sense, so you're not changing out pillows and you're not regretting the color of your couch and things like that. Earth tones make people feel at home because earth tones are familiar because it looks like the outdoors, and people are drawn to what's most familiar. So earth tones I like using in the living room because they make people feel at home, because they're harder to get dirty, but also they're familiar. And for the bedroom, I also like earth tones, but right now I have it as white. I could easily go to earth tones as well. For instance, a wooden bed with drawers underneath it would be perfect because I wouldn't even need a media center in the living room, for instance. So if you have kids, consider a bed with drawers underneath, because they won't even need a dresser maybe in their bedroom, because they can have all their toys or all their clothes underneath their bed. So earth tones in the bedroom can be very, very relaxing. White is more luxurious, and since guests aren't in there, then they don't feel uncomfortable because they're not sitting on my bed and stuff like that for the most part. So earth tones can be more comfortable. It depends on what you and your spouse want. So you can just merge your guys' tastes together and get exactly what you're looking for. Those are my tips for this video that I've learned the hard way, spending hundreds of dollars trying to figure everything out, and the mistakes I've made along the way. I hope that you can get some information that you can use. And if you like this video, definitely subscribe down below so that we can see you next Sunday, Pat and I. And thank you guys so much for watching.